Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. Idaho is a big state and it covers a lot of territory. Idaho Matters wants to take you to every corner of the Gem State by visiting all 44 counties, and we need your help to do that. Email us your story ideas at idahomatters@boisestate.edu for our new series we're calling Idaho 44. And be sure to join us each weekday at noon and 8 on Idaho Matters and travel the state with us. From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. Our next guest is no stranger to thrilling adventures and captivating stories. Ridley Pearson is a New York Times best-selling author known for his heart-pounding mysteries and his imaginative tales that have enchanted readers of all ages. And today he is joining us to talk about his exciting new chapter book series, Magical Map. Now, this is a journey full of wonder and mystery and, of course, a little bit of magic. And it is perfect for young readers and for families alike. Ridley, we just adore having you on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you, Gemma. It's such a pleasure and such an honor. You know how much I love Boise Public Radio, and we have to support Boise Public Radio.
Yes, we do. Thank you for that. Okay, let's talk about this new book series, Ridley. Tell us a little bit about the Magical Map and what it's about.
Yeah, well, back in 2018, I was speaking with my agent. Disney wanted some more material from me, and I didn't want to repeat myself. And we thought, one of the great joys of writing for young readers is getting them reading. That's what Peter and the Starcatchers and the Kingdom Keepers series has proven to do. And I get these wonderful emails from parents saying, little Johnny wasn't much of a reader, and I started reading the Kingdom Keepers to him at bedtime, and then he grabbed the book away from me, and now we can't get him out of the library. And, you hear those kind of stories. So we sort of decided to pitch Disney the idea of writing a short, highly illustrated book for grades, 2 through 5, something like that, hoping that the people who love the Kingdom Keepers would go out and get them too, because they're just a fun, fast read. And we'd make them high adventure. And like my other books, I do a ton of research inside the Disney parks. And so each one of these books takes place in a single attraction with these two young kids. Now, are you ready for their name?
Yes.
The young woman in this is named Gemma.
Stop it.
And her brother is Torin. And where do you think I got the name Gemma? Oh,
well,
I'm
hoping you got it from me. So.
I got it from you. So they're both about 10 years old, 11 years old. So the young girl in it is Gemma, and her brother Torin, and then their mom is a character who's never named. She's just called Mom with a capital M. My kids call me the commander, so she's kind of the commander.
Okay, I love that. So let's talk about the book itself, because I read a little bit about Gemma, and I have to say the one thing that I kind of like about her, because it reminded me of when I was a kid, is she's kind of got this imagination that, is it fair to say kind of gets her in a little bit of maybe mischief or trouble, Ridley?
Constantly. Yes. She is sort of Curious George in this whole thing. To go back a generation, no one will know what that is. Look it up. But Gemma is really bright and really curious. And the first book, which is Pirates of the Caribbean, starts out with they're packing up their legacy bookstore because they've got to move because their mother's gotten a position at Disney, and it's sort of breaking the hearts of both Gemma and Torin. And this guy in sort of retro clothing, tweeds. This is Florida. He's wearing tweeds. It's just kind of odd.
Wow.
He's an older gent, and he enters the store. And Gemma goes off to see if she can help him, and she catches him putting a book back on the shelf, not taking one off. And then he kind of turns a corner and's gone. And she goes back and finds this inappropriate book, just inappropriate in it's a journal. It's a leather journal sitting among all the
Mm-hmm.
bound books. And it's a pathway eventually to some really curious, crazy hijinks that she and Torin get into inside the parks.
So it's an actual, so it's this, I mean, the book, the series, Magical Map. I mean, she finds this map, right? And it kind of,
He
does it
does,
take them
taped into
literally
the
like,
back of this journal. So the journal is a lot of sketched pages, mostly in pencil, with tons of notes in and around it. And it looks like very early days of the plans for all of Disney World,
oh,
specifically the Magic Kingdom. But many of the rides that are now there aren't even on this map.
oh my
And she
goodness.
reads through it, and the stories are kind of engrossing. It's you can tell the person whoever did this was looking for a story within each attraction. And then at the back of the journal, old yellow, crinkly, cracking tape is holding in this hand-drawn map. And there's a little backwards code that she decodes, and it turns out that that little magical map is, in fact, a magical map that can get her back into the parks when no one's around.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, speaking of that, you get to do that. So,
I do.
what is
Call me
that like,
Torin.
Ridley? Oh, yeah, yeah, you're Torin, exactly. But
You're Gemma, I'm
what's that?
Torin.
Okay, perfect. Let's go. What
Yeah.
is that like to be able to truly go behind the scenes of the park like
Yeah, so
that?
they
And
they let
then,
me in. They let me in after all the people have left, which took a long time to get permission to do. And I'm
mhm.
toured around by an Imagineer, and these are the 4,000 or so people that engineer, create, and build all the attractions. Fascinating, brilliant people. And I get one of those on any visit as my personal guide. And we go in at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning when no one's around. And I get to walk the rides on the emergency routes under really
Oh my
weird lighting.
gosh.
It's creepy, it's cold, it's otherworldly because the park itself is dark. There's nobody around. It's just a whole different experience. And I take furious notes. And then they bring in a team, a set of crew members, cast members, and they start up the rides for me. And I ride them 5, 6 times, taking more notes. And then I go home and, like Gemma, I turn my imagination loose.
Wow. And
But it's
so this,
so interesting in their after hours. Oh my gosh.
it has to be. I mean, it has got to be just incredible. I mean, first off, just to be there without crowds. Let's start there.
Right,
But
exactly. And no
then,
music and no special lights. It's just
right.
it's a city of 80,000 people and they're all gone. And it's
Oh my
so
goodness.
different. It's wonderful and a little eerie, but very fun.
And I would think, Ridley, with this book series in particular, because they're literally like going into the rides and all of that, you really needed to have that experience, right? So that you could put
Yeah.
words to paper and build this story.
Yes, it's so even I write thrillers and mysteries for adults and these adventure books for young readers. All of the adventure books are published by Disney, and from the very beginning of our relationship, I explained that I'm just sort of a hands-on research guy, and I really need to see what it is because I try to describe it almost like a movie when you're reading. And
Mhm.
as I said, they were very reluctant. No one had ever done this as a fiction writer, but they eventually let me do it. And it does. It allows me to show you what I saw, and it makes it so much easier to write because I get in there and honestly, I get scared and a little creeped out, and I get to write all that into the books. So a little less so in Magical Map because it's a younger reader series, but
Mhm.
certainly in the Kingdom Keepers. In Magical Map, Torin and Gemma get in there, and there's always some kind of big problem with the ride. and it's going to keep the ride closed for a long time. And their mother is head of maintenance on the attractions. So
Oh,
they're really trying to help out their mom, but she doesn't know they can sneak in with this map. And they go in there and they end up talking to Disney characters and trying to work things out. And it gets
wow.
very magical and fun.
Can we talk a little bit about the fact that you decided to really go to a bit of a younger audience? We know that
Yeah.
these books are for, second to fifth grade. And you and I have talked about this before, but really, I think the magic in reading, and this is something where, I mean, I have two boys, and man, it is tough to get them to sit and read. But every time I have handed them one of your books as they've been growing up, they've read it. And it's just, I
That's
think
got
it's
to be
just
fiction,
so.
Gemma. Now you're writing the fiction.
I am not Ridley. I am not. It is true. And but truly, I think that there's something about capturing kids when they're young, like second grade.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
talking like 7 years old, that they
Right.
can start reading. How important it was that to you to do a new series that focused on a bit of a younger audience?
Yeah, well, my mission is to keep kids reading. I mean, that's why The Kingdom Keepers is there, why Peter and the Starcatchers with Dave Barry is there, and now this series. Um, there's just too much screen time, Gemma. It's
Hmm.
making people dumber. And when you get young people reading early and excited about reading and laughing and telling their mom to get out of the room so they can read more, that leads to a life of reading. And the
Yeah.
more we read, the smarter we get. It's doesn't even have to be some historical personal thing. It's just that the more words you read, the better vocabulary you get. The better vocabulary you have, people think you're smarter maybe than you are. But it gets you better jobs. It gets you relationships that stick. It's just so important, and just for the sheer joy of having another kind of entertainment than looking at a little screen.
Hmm. So the first book in the Magical Map, Pirates of the Caribbean, it's out right now.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean and Jungle Cruise came out on the same day, last Tuesday. So just a couple days
Okay.
ago. And they're paperback books. They're inexpensive. They're very short. They're 10,000 words with a lot of illustrations. And I just got an email yesterday that made me jump around the room. But I got an email from a fourth grade teacher who said, "I've loved your books, and I just read both of the books in a single sitting,
Oh,
and they are extraordinary, and I'm going to introduce all my students to them." And I just went, "Yes, we're getting somewhere." So,
I love that. And
yeah,
so so the first two are out now, and then
right.
there are two more coming out, right?
There's they're going to come out every 6 months now for the next 2 years. So there'll be one in early winter and then one in August again, early winter again, and August again. And if they do well, we might do 20 of these. And if they don't,
Can,
they don't. You never know.
well, can I just tell you that here's what I love, because especially having been an avid reader as a kid growing up, and I still love to read, is when you find a good series and then you have to wait and wait
Yeah,
and wait
yeah.
and wait for the next book. I love that they're coming out two at a time.
Yes. And the fact that they'll be coming out two at a time now and then one. We knew if we waited a year, they're a grade older at that point. So we just want
Yeah.
them to keep reading. So, like a Christmas book, then a summer book, then a Christmas book, summer book. So we'll see how all that works out. Fingers crossed.
Well, I love it so much. Stay with us, Ridley, because we are going to keep the conversation going right after this quick break.
I'm going to go stir my casserole.
Okay, go stir your casserole real quick. Ridley Pearson is a New York Times best-selling author known for his heart-pounding mysteries and his imaginative tales that have enchanted readers of all ages. As we just talked about his latest book series that just hit bookshelves August 5th, Magical Map. The very first, the first two books are out right now. They're for grades 2 to 5. So with kids going back to school, you might want to grab those for your kiddos and get them reading early this school year. However, another one of Ridley's acclaimed books, Peter and the Starcatchers, was adapted into a Broadway play. In fact, it has won quite a few Tony Awards. And guess what? That play is going to the Idaho Shakespeare Festival in just a couple of weeks. And so, Ridley, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this because, first
I'm
off, the fact
80.
that it's okay, I love this so much. So, we had Dave Barry on the show back in May, and he co wrote Peter and the Starcatchers with you. So, first off, tell us a little bit about Peter and the Starcatchers for folks who may not be familiar.
Sure. So it goes back to what we were talking about in the last segment that you've got to keep your kids reading. And so we read to our kids. We have two daughters, and we read to them every night for an hour, hour and a half, every darn day of their lives. In fact, they were still coming back at 13 after they'd stopped doing this and said, "Can we have another reading night?" And we would, even at that
Oh,
age. But at the time, our eldest, Paige, was anxious to read something, and she pulled out the novella of Peter Pan. And we went out into the hallway and sat on a chair. I can remember right where I was, and we started reading it. And she's kind of precocious. And 5 pages in, she put her hand across the words and said, "Dad, how did Peter Pan meet Captain Hook in the first place?" And
oh my
I'm a writer,
gosh.
so I have a little light that attaches to the top of my cranium, and my light went off. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I said to her, "Sweetie, that's a story." And then I went, "No, no, no, that's not a story. That's a book. And Daddy's going to write the book." And I dumped her into the chair and ran to my office and started making notes because I could just see this prequel. How did a boy become Peter Pan? And,
Yeah.
there's Tinker Bell, there's flying, there's never growing old, there's just, there's Captain Hook and mermaids, and this whole canvas expanded in front of my eyes. And I've been playing in a rock and roll band for over 30 years now. And it's all best-selling authors, among them Stephen
Hmm.
King and Amy Tan and Dave Barry. And I was down playing a show in Miami, and I was staying with Dave Barry, and he asked me what I was up to, and I mentioned Paige's question, and we never really talked business in this band, but he looked up and said, "You know, the two of us could write this." And I said, "I could write the suspense and you could write the humor." And he said, "Exactly."
Oh,
So we decided to co-write this, having no idea how one did such a thing. And for the next 10 years, we collaborated on 12 books, the first
oh
of
my
which was Peter
gosh.
and the Starcatcher. And it was an amazing experience to work with that crazy maniac who's just so bright and so fun to work with. And we really thought we talked through the whole thing and we said, let's just do an 80-page book that we can go down to Kinko's and print this thing up, and I'll get two copies for Page and Story, and you can get a copy for Sophie, and we'll be done. And it's one of these projects that was just born out of having a good time. And somewhere in there, while I was working on The Kingdom Keepers, I mentioned to my editor that I was writing a prequel to Peter Pan with Dave Barry. And there was just this dead silence on the other end of the phone. And my editor at the time, Wendy Lefkon, said, "Can you say that again?"
Ah,
And I repeated it. And she said, "Do you know that we own Peter Pan?" And I said, "Well,
no.
I'm not going to publish this. Don't worry about it." And she said, "No, you're not. We are. Send me what you've got." So we sent her 3 chapters and she bought it on the spot. And our 80 pages turned into 550.
Well, I have to tell you, first off, I remember the day that I gave my oldest son Peter and the Starcatchers.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
it was one of the first times he actually sat down and read a book from cover to cover without me having to bug him to do it. And he just turned 17 and he still talks about reading that book, Ridley. I mean, I think it's impactful for, for those middle school readers and everything. But with that said, so here you write this book just out of fun, it gets published, and then it gets adapted to a play. So tell us
And
how that
this
all
is the
happened.
crazy part of being an author. So here's not an unusual story. It gets optioned to Disney as a possible animated feature.
Hmm.
And right then, Disney acquires, Lasseter's company, Pixar. And
Okay.
Lasseter says, "Hey, I like the project, but it will take 6 years to do, and we won't start it for about 7 years." And
Oh
Dave
my
and I said,
goodness.
"We might not be alive in 7 years." So we moved on from animated, and it was optioned as a live action movie, and it was going to be directed by one of the guys who did um, a piece of Hunger Games. I mean, an
Hmm.
amazing director. And his proposal takes 18 months for him just to get his proposal in shape, at which point Warner Brothers announces that Pan with Hugh Jackman is coming out and
Oh,
Disney
right.
dumps that project. So now we're like 3 years into this thing. And then we get a call from Disney Theatrical saying, "Hey, Peter Pan started as a play and we'd like to make it a play." And we said, "Go
Oh,
for
that's
it."
right.
And so then it took 6 years to turn a book into a play. And I had this amazing opportunity of keeping my mouth shut and just watching it be developed year after year after year. And it finally went to La Jolla, California, the La Jolla Playhouse, where it ran in workshop, which means the audience stays after the performance and makes comments. And Disney felt it was good enough to move on to off Broadway. And we went to the New York Theater Workshop, and it had one of the best runs of any play ever workshopped at the New York Theater Workshop. And then they moved it to Broadway, and it won 5 Tonys. And it is still being performed in 700 productions a year across the United States. So thousands of people seeing it, including Boise this September.
Yes. I mean, so is it almost surreal
It's
to,
very
I mean,
surreal.
it's got to be, right? Because
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
very surreal.
it's not just someone, picking up your book and reading it. Now it's sitting there and watching someone saying the words that you created. And,
And
and,
listening to
and
Rick Ellis's incredible version of it, which is so funny. And it's funny at an adult level and at a kid level. So a lot of it goes over the kids' heads, and the adults are chuckling, and then the adults are kind of rolling their eyes, and the kids are chuckling. And he tells a story so similar to the book, but it's not the book, of course, it's a play. And it's just ingenious. He did such a brilliant job.
And can you talk a little bit more about the impact on adults? Because I think that in sometimes what happens with books like this, and then they get adapted into plays, and everybody assumes like, oh, so it's a play that I'm just supposed to take my kids to, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, 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 no. This is for adults too.
Yeah, it's totally for adults. Um, no, that's one of the great misconceptions. In fact, there was just a huge production of it in Australia, and the media picked up on the kid side of it. And it's really a play for adults. And so I think in many ways, the wrong audience came in Australia. And it was a terrific adaptation, a terrific performance by everybody. But it's it moves very quickly. It's brilliantly acted. There's about, I'd say there's between 12 and 14 actors who play 50 roles. So they're
Oh my
always switching
gosh.
costumes, switching hats. They move. We don't have a crew that moves the props. They move all the props. So the story just rips. And there's, I don't know, 5 to 7 songs in it. It's not a musical, but there are these sea chanties and things in it. And you just get this amazing experience. I think that's why it's been going for 12 years now, all over the country in schools, is that and community theater, is that it's just a really fun evening. It compels you. There's mystery. There's action. There's a wonderful sort of heartfelt love story between these children. It's just, if Dave and I had written this, Gemma, it would it wouldn't have made it to a middle school in Padoki. But with Rick Ellis behind the pen, it really comes to life.
Well, Ridley, it is always such a delight to talk with you. We have been talking about Ridley's newest series, Magical Map. The first two books are out right now. Go grab them for your kiddos. And Peter and the Starcatchers will be at the Idaho Shakespeare Festival beginning September 5th, running to September 26th. Ridley, thank you so much for taking time for us.
Thank you so much. Idaho Matters, and we're all going to support you.
You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudette.